No, and I'll tell you why. Sorry, I know it's kind of a weird way to start, but that's a response to the title of today's content. I wanted to get that right out there, and I will spend the remainder of this time justifying why I'm taking that position. So, for some people, suicidal thoughts are a near constant experience. Very few moments pass without at least some awareness that there is an immediate way out, so to speak, and at least a hint of a desire to take that way out. For others, suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts is a more acute experience. It's something that, at least to some degree, kind of comes and goes. And sometimes it might come and go randomly with no apparent rhyme or reason to it. Or sometimes it might be in response to life stressors or emotional distress or just other challenges that we face. And that's when it pops up. It's just kind of a reminder of like, hey, if it gets too bad, you can always do this. When I work with people who experience the more acute form of suicidal thinking, where it's not always present, but sometimes it is very, very present, a question that often comes up in our work together is some variation of which one of these states or desires is the real me. Which one shows like my true heart and my true character? Sometimes I want to live, and sometimes I want to die. And those two things are obviously completely incongruent. They're about as diametrically opposed as two things can be, right? It's a little bit like saying, I want to be married to my partner, but I also want to divorce my partner. We can ultimately only choose one of these pathways, and then we have to try to be satisfied with our choice. I think that in my experience, the default assumption seems to be that suicidal thinking is somehow a character reveal, that that's your true self, that that's your true heart, and that the periods in between, so to speak, where those thoughts are quieter or even non-existent, that they represent something like denial or ignorance, or that they're just like little pockets in time where we forget how grueling existence is and how aversive the world feels. Like they are the exceptions to the rule, and the desire to get the heck out of here ASAP is the shoe that will inevitably drop again, so to speak. This question like which of these states is the real me, I think it is a very important question. And I think it deserves to be taken seriously and not just discarded or answered, flippantly. To try and tackle it, because it's a big question, obviously, the first thing I'd like to do is to differentiate between an intrusive thought and an impulsive thought. They can both feel very similar in that they are these usually pretty big ideas that seem to come out of nowhere. They can just pop into our brains unprompted, at least in some cases, and they often involve pretty serious stuff like death or violence or crime or just antisocial behavior in general. They're thoughts that tend to make us stop and pay attention to them and say, whoa, what the heck is happening inside of my mind right now? But there is one critical difference between intrusive thoughts and impulsive thoughts that you need to understand because it can change everything. An intrusive thought is something that you explicitly do not want to happen. If you were to take an intrusive thought, which they often appear visually, but if you turned it into a narrative, if you put words to it, an intrusive thought would start with a phrase like, wouldn't it be terrible if? So to give you an example, when I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking and I'm maybe cutting something up with a knife, if my wife or kids like walk past or walk into the kitchen, sometimes I get this image in my head of me like tripping or falling or the knife just flying out of my hand and injuring a member of my family. That is not something I want to happen. That is not an impulse. That is an intrusive thought. I don't want it to happen. And it's basically my brain's way of saying, hey, you're in a potentially dangerous situation right now, and you need to kind of pay attention and be careful here to make sure this terrible thing does not happen. So that's an intrusive thought. An impulsive thought is something that, at least in some way or to some degree, you do genuinely want to happen. There is desire behind an impulsive thought. It still doesn't necessarily mean you actually want to do the thing in the exact format your brain is presenting it to you, but there is a desire in there somewhere. So let me give you an example of that. If I'm in a store and I see a really expensive item that I want, but I don't actually want to pay for it, I might experience an impulse to just take it, to just like put it in my pocket, and walk out. That's an impulse because I do genuinely want the thing. I don't actually want to steal it because that could cause me obviously a whole host of problems. But there's at least like a core of a genuine desire in that I wish I had this thing. I wouldn't actually steal it because I don't want to cause harm to others, even if the others in this case represents a soulless corporation. That's just not within my value system. So in short, just to summarize this part, intrusive thoughts are warnings, impulsive thoughts are desires, but they can take the exact same form, and it's really easy to mix the two up. The most common one I see, and this one can be either, I'm not saying it's always one or the other, but the most common one that I see or hear about, I guess, is if you're driving and an image flashes into your mind of you like turning your vehicle into oncoming traffic, for example. First of all, that's very common. So if you think that's only you, it's not only you. Obviously, I wouldn't be able to say it if it was only you. That's a common, usually intrusive thought. That's your brain warning. That's your brain reminding you because, we get used to driving, right? Driving's a normal thing. And we forget, like, it's actually really dangerous. Like, this is a pretty serious thing you're doing right now, and you need to pay attention because this could go very badly in an instant if your judgment or your attention lapses. And sometimes our brains are like, hey, don't forget, like, you could die doing this, or you could kill someone else doing this. And so we have these warning signs flash into our brains. And a lot of times people, if they have that, because it's such a disturbing thought, especially if it's really graphic and detailed, a lot of times people interpret that as suicidal ideation. But I think typically it's not. And the best way to tell the difference between the two is to ask or to notice the presence or absence of like stress or anxiety. If it stresses you out or freaks you out, then it's probably an intrusive thought, not an impulsive thought, because your brain is saying, I don't want this to happen. Please pay attention so it does not happen. So that's our first branching pathway. Some of what you're calling suicidal thinking might actually be an intrusive thought, which then very clearly is saying, this is against my character. I don't desire this. Those we can filter out and say, those don't say anything about you other than that you don't want these things to happen. Now, that may not filter out the majority of your thoughts, and that's okay. Even if you conclude that most or even all of your suicidal thinking is an impulsive thought, not an intrusive thought, that still doesn't mean that you literally want to kill yourself right then and there, even if that is the exact language or visual being used in your brain. Suicidal ideation often represents a desire to escape aversive stimuli or experiences rather than an explicit desire to be dead. It's not necessarily, there is no configuration of variables in my life where I think I would want to keep going, and usually more, I don't know how to do that. I don't know if I can ever make existing a thing where it feels like the juice is worth the squeeze, so to speak. It always feels like I'm putting more in than I get out, and it's like squeezing water out of a stone. Your brain wants a painful thing to be over or to prevent something painful in the future, even if death is not truly your preferred method for achieving that goal. Most people, I think, would rather stay alive but have that feel good than to die. It's just that we don't always think that that is an option. And so in that case, the suicidal ideation being the specific format that desire takes is a little bit like when I am stuck in traffic and I envision my truck turning into a monster truck and me just being able to drive over all of the cars that are blocking me. I don't actually want to commit mass vehicular murder. I just don't want to be stuck in traffic. And sometimes my brain is like, here's how that could not happen. It's more an artifact of unsettledness than it is like, here's the specific thing I want to do. So if that rings true for you, that the idea that suicidal thinking is less, I literally want to be dead, and more like, I don't want to feel this way anymore, then it is very important to not over-identify with your suicidality. And this is something that I see happen to people. And I'm not trying to give anyone a hard time. I'm just calling out a pattern that I see. They nurture and embrace these thoughts almost like they're character traits or personality traits. And that can cause a whole host of problems. And I'm going to give my usual disclaimer here, which is that I almost certainly don't know you, okay? You're probably a stranger to me. I'm talking about me and maybe a small handful of people that I do know. But changing my perspective on these thoughts from something I saw as a part of me to something that happened to me was a major paradigm shift that helped me immensely. If my suicidal thinking comes from the general displeasure that I experience when I interact with the world, and the general displeasure that I experience when I interact with the world is at least in part influenced by things like depression and anxiety, then my suicidal thinking is a symptom of a condition, nothing more. It is so easy to get super philosophical about it, and in my experience, that does not lead anywhere productive. Because the long-term effect of that is that suicidal thinking becomes a habit, a bad habit, in my opinion. For many of us, the promise of eventual death was what allowed us to endure life, that we know we don't have to do this forever. And maybe at some point in your life, you did have a genuine desire to escape through death. And it was almost like your emotional 401k, like for your eventual retirement plan. But when you use that resource for a long period of time, it can become an automatic thought, a subconscious and unwanted reaction to even a mild stressor. And it's basically a habitual trace of a coping mechanism, in much the same way that a sober person who once struggled with addiction probably still has urges from time to time. Like, these mental pathways don't just completely go away because we haven't used them in a while. And for many people, suicidal thoughts do start as a coping mechanism. It's a reminder that if things get bad enough, I can just leave. Like, I don't like this party, I know where the door is. That's all it is for many people. And sometimes that stuff just sticks around even when you don't need it anymore. Like, I'll have random moments where something really small happens, like I don't know, make a mistake on a piece of paperwork or something, and I can easily fix it. And my brain's like, yeah, you should just die. And I'm like, bro, that is not a congruent reaction to the current situation. But it's still in there. And it's not even a genuine desire. It's just simply a bad habit. It's a remnant of a thing I used to use significantly to cope with distress. It's just still there, but I don't want it anymore. And so sometimes we get to that point. It's important to know when you've crossed that line. One more way of looking at it, I know I'm hitting this point pretty hard here, but like, let's say I moved to Germany. I would learn the German language, and eventually, after some period of time, if I stayed there for years, I could start to think in German. German could become my native language. But just because I think in German and live in Germany, that doesn't make me German, right? Like, my identity and my cultural heritage is still that of an American. The way you think doesn't change who you are. And so struggling with suicidal ideation doesn't mean you're a different person now. It's just a thing that happens to you. One more point that I want to make here. Pay attention, pay close attention, because this can be key, to whether there are any biological trends that seem to relate to your acute suicidality. For example, do you notice that you are more prone to suicidal thinking when you are either exhausted or malnourished? Meaning, like, if you had a rough night of sleep or you're not eating very well, does the intensity of the thoughts, frequency, intensity, duration, does this stuff seem to increase? If you notice that it does, this is really, really important for two reasons. One, it helps answer our question here. If you notice a relationship between suicidal thinking and one or more biological deficiencies, no offense, that's just what I'm calling it, it directly contradicts the idea that suicidal thinking represents the real you, that this is truly who you are at your core. Because if you experience it more when your brain is doing less and functioning more poorly or less efficiently, then that actually suggests the opposite. That suggests that this is an artifact of things not working correctly within you. And that the more clear thinking you are, because the more your brain has all the resources it needs to do its job properly and fire on all cylinders, the less this happens to you, then this is not the real you. Then this is an artifact of you not taking care of yourself to some degree, which it often is for many people. The second reason that observation is really, really important is because it gives you action steps that you can take to reduce suicidal ideation. I know this might seem really, really basic, but I've seen this be true hundreds of times in my career. focusing on consistency with really, really basic stuff like sleep hygiene and nutrition can decrease the frequency and the duration and the intensity of your suicidal thoughts, because your emotion regulation system, your coping system, your social system is more online, and you're more able to deal with challenges and interact with the world in ways that don't feel terrible. With nutrition in particular, we know that depression lowers energy and motivation. So obviously, like, simple ways where you can meet your nutritional needs consistently can be literally a lifesaver. One simple, effective way to meet your nutritional needs consistency is the sponsor of today's video, which is Huel. Huel creates nutritionally complete meals with low energy requirements for preparation and cleanup, meaning like they've done most of the work for you and you have to do little, if any, work to just like consume this meal that's going to give your body and your brain everything it needs for about the next 5 or 6 hours. This month, they're offering something called the High Protein Starter Bundle, which contains 1 Black Edition pouch, 5 ready-to-drink Black Edition bottles, and a shaker cup, all for 20% off with the code SCOTT20. You can get that discount by using the link in the description of today's content or by scanning the QR code here on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. In conclusion, I am generally of the opinion that our thoughts do not reveal nearly as much about us as we might think. In fact, I believe that most of our thoughts are fairly stupid and useless. There is a reason that most people only speak a tiny fraction of the ideas that come into their brain. And if you've ever been around someone who doesn't do that, someone who lacks that filter, you know those people are usually pretty challenging to be around because there's so much coming out of them, and a lot of it isn't like super high value. No offense. That's true for everybody. That's because a lot of what our brains produce is garbage. I try to be very cautious about which thoughts I engage with, in much the same way that I am very cautious about which content I engage with on social media, because most of it, frankly, is not worth your time.